Okay, so it's connected now, so don't nobody say anything out of pocket. This is about to be on Facebook. All right, I think that we are good to go. It appears that we are streaming live. So, Joy, you can go ahead and start us off.
Okay. Welcome to the Black Community COVID-19 Response Virtual Press Conference hosted by BWOP Chicago. My name is Joy Bunton, and I'm pleased to share a bit about BWOP. BWOP, or Black Women Organizing for Power, is a political advocacy group dedicated to the collective uplift of Black people throughout the city of Chicago and state of Illinois, with Black women at the helm of the organization. We are devoted to using the political process to organize on behalf of Black folks, Black women at every level of government here locally. And we are also proud to be supportive of the nationwide ADOS movement, which seeks a comprehensive program of federal reparations to the American descendants of slavery. I'd like to introduce our featured speaker, Raquel McGee, founder and co-chair of BWOP Chicago.
Thank you so much, Joy. Good morning, everyone, and I want to thank you for joining us. My name is Raquel McGee. I'm the founder and co-chair of BWOP Chicago. I want to start off by recognizing that Black folks are in a state of sustained collective mourning due to recent tragic lynchings of Breonna Taylor of Louisville, Ahmaud Arbery of Brunswick, Georgia, and Drayshawn Reed of Indianapolis, Indiana. We want to lift up the families of those who are mourning the lives of their loved ones. And we also want to acknowledge the tragic kinship that those families are experiencing right along with Chicagoland area families who have also experienced loss due to state-sanctioned violence against Black bodies. We lift you up in our thoughts, prayers, but most importantly, in solidarity. Our press conference this morning is intended to draw attention to another form of state-sanctioned violence that is being meted out against Black bodies during this pandemic. 48% of the lives lost in the city of Chicago due to COVID-19 have been Black lives, and that is not a coincidence. We can draw a direct line from the institution of chattel slavery here in the United States to the racial terrorism of sharecropping, Jim Crow, and convict leasing, to the refugee crisis that we name the Great Migration to hide its horror, to the segregated and redlined Black American descendants of slavery, ADOS communities, that this city continues to disinvest in to this very day. This morning, we're going to outline some specific policy demands that we want to see the city take in order to save Black lives and livelihoods during this crisis. First, I'd like to introduce our invited speaker. We are going to welcome Tammy Vinson of the Chicago Teachers Union Black Caucus. So please join me in welcoming Tammy.
All right, I do know how to unmute, apologies. Again, my name is Tammy Vinson. I'm a Chicago public school teacher. I live and work on the west side of Chicago. And as previously stated, this pandemic has brought to light the significant divide in access to technology within the public school system. So we have many of our students who don't have computers or other devices to engage in remote learning, and many others don't have access to the internet. And although the state has mandated that none of our students will be held harmless because of this lack of access and disruptions to the school year, we know that they will. We have many students that are homeless. We have special needs students, and we know that the Black and brown and lower income students, because of this lack of virtual learning, will be left further behind. And we need to have some level of relief because we know we're going to be out of the school buildings for the rest of the school year. But what's going to happen in the fall? What's going to happen in September? How are we going to ensure that we can safely get our students back into the school buildings so they can re-engage in learning? And while we're out during this time, we know that our families are being traumatized. Many of our parents are essential workers with the expectation of leaving their homes to go to work, but to also provide some sort of homeschooling for the students. So we know that students have lots of things that are going on that are impacting their home lives, the poverty, the violence, the lack of investment, all of these things that are systemically part of our communities. So policies and practices need to be considered and implemented to address the historically reported achievement gap and to talk about all of the social ills that have increased this gap. We have to have a plan to increase the assessment of health so we could test for the exposure to the virus, because what parent wants their child to re-enter a school building with the likelihood of being infected by a virus where there's no vaccine? We have overcrowded classrooms, so we cannot safely practice social distancing within the school setting just because it's not feasible. But we're going to have to find a way to get our children, in my opinion, back into the school system because we have a mandate to provide them with quality, free, appropriate education, which historically has been, not there. But my hope would be that since this pandemic has brought to light so many disparities, that we can impact change. And I that's why I totally agree with BWOP making these demands, because if we don't make these demands, we'll go back to business as usual, even though they're saying that this new normal will further negatively impact our communities. So we have to make demands. We have to petition for change. We have to organize and collaborate, educate and engage, because otherwise we won't move forward, and we really can't afford to regress. So thank you for allowing me to engage with you guys. And yeah, hopefully things will work out for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tammy, for your remarks. Your words really bring to our attention the fact that this crisis is being compounded within Black students and their families. I want to give some more context to the situation that we're facing. So 48% of the lives lost here in the city of Chicago due to COVID-19 have been Black folks, despite being only 29% of the population. As Tammy noted, Black workers are also overrepresented in jobs on the front lines of service occupations without the luxury to stay at home. An Economic Policy Institute study revealed that 80% of Black workers across the country are unable to work from home. And right here in this city, we know that CTA workers, 65% of those workers are Black. We also know that 36% of healthcare service workers are Black. And that's just to name two specific sectors. I'm now going to speak directly to the 5 policy demands that we need from the city of Chicago. I invite members of the city council who may be watching, or other folks, tagging your alderman so that they can catch this. Grab a notepad, write this down, because we want these directives to be transformed into actual substantive policy. We also invite you to contact us at bwopchicagochair@gmail.com if you'd like to discuss these demands further. I'll begin. First, we demand a Black COVID-19 digital resource hub and hotline to be set up specifically for Black Chicagoans, which includes a dedicated line for Black Chicagoans to report barriers to testing and access to healthcare. We mourn with the family of Gary Fowler of Detroit, a Black man who passed away from COVID-19 after being turned away from 3 different hospitals. And we want to ensure that Black Chicagoans are able to report any similar examples of inequitable access, which could literally mean life and death. Second, we demand that the City of Chicago, under the leadership of Candace Moore, who is our Chief Equity Officer, and Dr. Allison Arwadi, who is the Chicago Department of Public Health Commissioner, release a detailed Black disaster relief plan that includes funding for medical care facilities and widespread distribution of PPE in majority Black communities, as well as the immediate housing of all unhoused people, 75% of which in this city are Black men. Third, we demand that $6 million of the $8.7 million in federal funding received by the Chicago Department of Public Health be designated for Black communities, making sure to specifically include the establishment of new testing sites throughout the majority ADOS, American Descendants of Slavery communities, the zip codes that are facing the highest burden. And again, I want to draw you back to that straight line from the institution of chattel slavery to those same red-lined communities that are bearing the burden of this crisis. So I will name some zip codes: 60620, 60619, 60617, and 60628. Fourth, we demand that the City of Chicago set up a hand washing station or several stations in busy corridors in majority Black communities. And finally, last but certainly not least, we demand the city provide a monthly quarantine allowance and hazard pay, similar to the overtime pay structure, to those who are diagnosed and essential workers who are impacted, in which, as I've stated previously, Black folks are disproportionately represented. For anyone who may be watching, rebuffed by what you may see as fantastical or out-of-the-box demands, I would draw your attention instead to the fantastical, irrational ways in which we are seeing the disproportionate impact of this pandemic due to decades of deliberate policy choices. We can chart a new path forward. We don't need to return to normal. We need to chart a new normal. But I want to remind you that equity requires specificity. So I call on our elected officials to stand up for the lives of Black Chicagoans. We're pleased to be supported in these demands by the following individuals and organizations who stand with us on behalf of Black Chicagoans. Alderman Jeanette Taylor of the 20th Ward, that's my alderman. The 25th Ward IPO, the AFT Chicago Black Caucus, of which Tammy Vinson so graciously represented for us, Black and Pink Chicago, the Black Community Collaborative, Chicago Votes, Illinois Legal Aid Online, Indivisible Chicago Southside, National Lawyers Guild Chicago, and Rising Tide Chicago. We thank these folks for standing in solidarity with us. We're near the end of our press conference, but I want to leave all of our viewers with a charge. Our city council meeting is in about a half an hour, and our state legislature meets today, tomorrow, and Friday. On the BWOP Facebook and Twitter pages, you will see links to our scripts in order to reach out to your city and state level officials by calling or emailing, and we will continue to repost them again throughout the day. Please join us in our weekly outreach days. On Wednesdays, we target city level officials through emails and calls on behalf of Black Chicagoans. On Thursdays, we target state level officials through emails and calls on behalf of Black folks throughout the entire state of Illinois. Thank you again for joining us during today's press conference. Please channel your passion and love for Black folks into doing the outlined actions in our demand petition, and feel free to reach out to us at bwopchicagochair@gmail.com. Yours in solidarity, BWOP Chicago.